The True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to skip the intro, please refer to the timestamp listed in the episode description. Thank you.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is July 10th right now. We just talked about this a little on Patreon. It is so disgusting hot in New York. It is crazy humid. This weather is insane. And then for Olivia in Australia, it's super cold.
We're having some like Antarctic winter freeze or something like that. I've seen people freaking out on Facebook around here. They're like, is it really going to be so cold? How are we going to survive? Which I feel like that is a bit silly, but it is very, very cold.
I swear, I'm like having your weather normally because you're always talking about how humid it is there in the summer, and you're like having my weather. So yeah, just crazy times here for sure. We don't really have much to chat about today. I will say that I'm putting a call out to anyone who watches Love Island USA. Please message me and gossip with me. I'll try to remember to check my message requests because sometimes I forget or they go to hidden. But like, I just need to talk about it nonstop all the time. And if you're not watching it and you love reality TV, go check it out. This is not
Still
an
not
ad.
out
It'd be
here.
my dream for it to be an ad.
I tried to see if it was out here, which it's not yet. I don't even know when it will be. I couldn't find a definitive answer, so hopefully soon.
If you use a VPN, you can use my Peacock account.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I'm obsessed. I feel like a drug addict. It's on pretty much every night, and I'm always like anxiously waiting for the next episode.
I'm currently watching Owning Manhattan. For anyone who needs a good show, I am a sucker for all the real estate shows, like all the $1 Million Listings, Buying Beverly Hills, all those. I'm watching Owning Manhattan now. I do love it. I do love Ryan Serhan as well. So I recommend that if anyone is likes those kind of shows and is looking for a good one.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not a big TV watcher. I'm very specific with like what I watch. I watch like all the big shows, not all, but ones that a lot of people talk about and things I think I'll watch, obviously. But I'm never the type of person to just like browse the guide and be like, let me just put on these reruns of this old show that I used to watch, or let me just throw this on. Like, I don't have the attention span for that. I have a cell phone. Excuse me.
I know, some people are like, I've watched everything on Netflix. I'm like, I could never, like, it's just a personal viewing preference. Like, I watch things that I'm interested in and that's it. Like, I wouldn't watch something just for the sake of watching.
Yeah, same.
But one thing I am excited about, which is coming out on Netflix end of the month, the new Unsolved Mysteries. I think it's July 31 is coming out. I'm very excited for that.
Can you see what cases it's going to be, or just some of them?
So there was a blurb about the cases. They didn't list the cases. I'll just see if I can find the thing quickly. But anyway, like one of them is about like a mysterious creature flying around Chicago. Another one was about a woman found dead in a basement. So it seems like this series will be quite a lot of weird mysteries. Like we were talking, we don't love the alien and the ghost ones so much. I prefer the missing person and the murder ones, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what they come up with.
I know. I always hate those episodes.
I do like in the new Unsolved Mysteries, like the last few seasons, I did like the Japanese tsunami ghost. I thought that was an interesting like when I say real mystery, like a paranormal mystery. But
yeah, you also just love Japan, so
yeah, true. But anyway, exciting. We'll have to talk about it once it comes out.
All right, so we do have some updates we can get into. One, Gypsy Rose Blanchard is pregnant. We posted about this on Instagram. It's been all over. There's a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. Basically,
a lot of opinions.
She is due in January 2025, which if you count backwards, it's kind of a little iffy of a timeline because she split up with her, I guess, husband, got divorced or split up anyways, Ryan Anderson was it March or April?
I think March.
It says just over 3 months after leaving him. So yeah, it seems like her and Ryan ended things in March. It seems like this baby would have had to be conceived sometime around there, maybe April, March-ish. I don't really know exactly, but it is very close. So Gypsy's been out of prison for 6 months. So within that time, she has left her husband, got back with her ex-fiance, is now pregnant.
There's a People
Got a lot
article
going on.
from March 29th about they'd announced their split, so it was end of March. Like, obviously, we don't know how long before they'd split, but by the end of March, it had hit the media. So, yeah, interesting timing.
So she wasted zero time unless there was some crossover, but who knows? Maybe it'll be addressed in her show. She also posted her episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians is on tonight, so just all the things are happening for her. It is a little silly and ridiculous, all of it, but I don't like people are so mean and nasty. It's like, do you really need to be this awful and write such disgusting things? Like, I get why some people are like side-eyeing it. I think it's all a little, I guess silly is the best word.
Yeah.
But some people are just so nasty about it. It's like, leave her alone.
There is an interesting comment, which I wasn't sure about the validity of it, but we've been Googling and it does seem to be true.
This is insane.
It says, this is the comment. Legally, specifically in Louisiana, any baby born within 300 days of a divorce being finalized is considered the child of the ex-husband. The birth certificate will automatically list Ryan as the father until one of two things happen. Either a paternity test is completed or he agrees to terminate his parental rights and Ken agrees to legally adopt the baby. So I guess this could be another interesting thing that may come of this.
And it just seems like, I guess, that Ken would have to take a paternity test, hopefully.
Like, I feel like that wouldn't be... Like, if they know the baby is Ken's, like, that would be an easy way to kind of...
I'm sure that Ryan doesn't want the baby.
Oh, my gosh.
What kind of redneck, is that like rude to say? Redneck law is that? Like, that is so bizarre.
Like, when I was Googling, a lot of people are like, well, most people just don't get out of divorce and go and have another baby. But I guess, too, like, people may have been split up for a longer time before they actually divorced. I don't know. That is a weird law. And I thought when the person commented, I'm like, there's no way that is real. But according to Google and legal articles, it is true in Louisiana.
Sends a message to be like, oh, actually? I don't care. Don't tell me.
Just another... She's a wild story. Like, 7 months out of jail now, pregnant, divorced, new man. She's living her best life.
I keep meaning to... I don't know, is the show still like on, or does it come out like in parts? Because I know like a few more episodes came out, but people said like that it was kind of just like a recap of what already happened. I keep meaning to look and I keep forgetting. So then we have another update about Lady Bird Lake, which is something we did an episode on.
In 2023. It's been a bit quiet, so go back and listen to the episode. I think we did it in May 2023 or mid 2023 anyway. But basically, since 2022, the bodies of 11 men and 2 women have been pulled from the Lady Bird Lake, which is part of the Colorado River in Austin, Texas. So it seems like it's been a little bit quiet there, which is unusual for summer because people are out on the water and, things like that. But another body was found on July 5th. The Austin PD released a statement on Twitter, and basically they said that the person had died from blunt force trauma and that they were going to have a briefing, but then they kind of backtracked and retracted and said the deceased suffered an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound and this is not being investigated as a homicide. The person was found at 5:30 p.m. on July 5th, which was Friday, on a path next to the river. They said there was thick pools of blood were left between the path and the water's edge. And I just found this is kind of an interesting statement. This person is from the Austin PD. His name is actually Austin Zarling. He said all investigative steps being taken are routine measures. At this time, this is being considered an isolated incident. There is no known threat to the public. I spoke to homicide detectives and there is no serial killer at this time. At least we don't believe there is one. I feel like that last sentence should not have been said.
Yeah, like what are they doing?
Like just leave it at the no serial killer
They're like,
part.
ooh.
Maybe. Like it's
because
funny
they don't want it to be like there is a serial killer and then like you said there wasn't.
We've had a bunch of, so we posted about this on Instagram and I've seen there's a bunch of different messages. Someone wrote and said basically they don't believe there's a serial killer because the victimology is all over the place. There's different races, different genders.
Yeah.
So basically that is generally not how a serial killer works. But then someone else wrote and said they live there and they absolutely believe there's a serial killer. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like it does seem like there's such a high concentration of bodies being found in that area. There's other big lakes and rivers where there's not as many. Like Lake Lanier in Georgia, I know there's quite a few things that happen there, but what happens at Lady Bird Lake does seem excessive.
But I remember when we did our episode our episode too, like we found comments or people are saying how it's just also not, there's no like infrastructure around it to really keep people safe. There's not really any fencing, and sometimes it's kind of a big drop off and stuff like that. But I don't think there's a serial killer. I think it's probably just a lot of bad coincidences.
I feel like obviously this last one seems like it was a gunshot wound, so it's kind of a little bit different because the majority of people who are found in there do drown. And I know there's a big kind of entertainment bar precinct at one section of the lake, which would explain why, we've mentioned the phenomenon of men going into the water after leaving bars a lot of times because they're drunk, they go to pee, they fall in. So the last body and death is a little bit different. But I just feel like maybe it is just a bunch of coincidences, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's just too all over the place, like that quote was saying. But it does, now it becomes a thing where people like want to go to it and they're like, ooh, it's like Lady Bird Lake, scary. Or if someone does kill someone, they're like, oh, let me just dump them in this lake because everyone turns up dead there and it won't even seem that shady. So I think it's just turning into like a hot spot.
And a bit of I think it's probably turning into an urban legend now. Like people are just more aware of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 11 bodies in 2 years is a lot. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens.
So avoid the area.
Yeah, they have given the maybe serial killer the name the Rainy Lake Killer. The Austin police obviously say no. The man who died this time was a white male. So, there have been a few white men. But anyway, I do agree. I just think it's probably likely not a serial killer, but an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, not a place I'll be visiting. Before we get into the episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor, Factor. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes, so no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. I'm so excited to try Factor. I can't wait for it to come because I feel like I say this all the time. I'm so busy and it's so easy to eat poorly when you're super busy and just get fast food or grab something quickly. So I'm super excited to try this out because I really do want to eat healthier and do better because, it's not great to eat fast food all the time. So,
and the ingredients sound so delicious. They've got ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, blackened salmon, all things that just sound amazing. So there's 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You'll always have new flavors to explore. And one of the best things is you can keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or clean up, and we all love that. So you can enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/TCS50 and use code TCS50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code TCS50 at factormeals.com/TCS50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Okay, so that's it for the updates. We're going to talk about an older case, not too old though, from 2018. It's a pretty big one. I think most people would have at least heard of it, right?
Well, yeah. I remember at the time when it happened, it was big news because it's going to be about Blaze Bernstein. So he was missing before he was found deceased, and it's been a long legal process. Like it's been 6 years. So I know we've spoken in the past too about how sometimes things happen quickly. This one definitely didn't happen quickly, but it's been in the news in the last week or so because there's finally been resolution in the case, or an outcome anyway.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the unsolved mystery type cases, even though it is like solved in a sense, essentially, but just seems like that, where you just always see people randomly talking about it in crime subreddits, and it just seems to be one that people think about and talk about a lot.
Yeah.
So yes, Blaze was murdered after he went to meet an acquaintance at a park, and his death was officially declared a hate crime because due to his sexuality and religious beliefs, he was very openly gay and he was Jewish.
As bailiffs escorted Samuel Woodward in, it was the only time we clearly saw him. Woodward's now long hair covered his face as the court heard several hours of opening statements in his long-awaited and delayed murder trial. Prosecutors say Woodward's former classmate Blaze Bernstein fought for his life as Woodward killed him for one reason.
The defendant is guilty of killing Blaze because he was gay. The evidence will show you the history of the defendant's state of mind, the evolution of his desire, the execution of his actions.
Prosecutors allege Woodward followed anti-gay and Jewish ideology of the Atomwaffen Division, a white supremacy group that believed members should get rid of undesirable people.
The prey that the defendant had chosen was gay people.
January 2018, Bernstein's body was found buried in a muddied, shallowed grave in a park near his family's Lake Forest home. He was stabbed 28 times. Woodward's defense attorney does not argue that.
That's right. We agree. The evidence will show that Samuel Woodward is guilty of homicide.
Defense attorney Kenneth Morrison urging jurors not to focus on the what of this case.
The why is the single most important issue you will need to decide.
Morrison says Woodward has autism and was torn about his sexuality.
You will learn that Blaze Bernstein was not killed because of who he was, but because of what he did to Sam Woodward after they met up. What happened that night, plain and simple, was not a hate crime.
But we'll start with some background into Blaze so you guys can learn a little bit more about him. Blaze was born on April 27th, 1998 in Orange County, California. His parents are Gideon Bernstein and Jean Pepper. They met in 1987 when they were both attending the University of California, Santa Barbara, and they were married in 1992. Gideon is an equity partner at Leisure Capital Management, and Jean earned her law degree in 1995 from Pepperdine School of Law. In 2000, she retired to raise Blaze and his two siblings, Bo and Jay. And another just random tidbit, Blaze's paternal grandmother, Leah Bernstein, was born in Romania in 1936 and is one of the few living Holocaust survivors. Interesting in the sense that it seems like Blaze, one of the reasons that he could have been targeted is because he's Jewish and one of his family members is a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
According to Blaze's family, he was a brilliant teenager with a good sense of humor and a generous and gentle heart. Blaze loved cooking, music, art, performing, and writing. He graduated from the Orange County School of Arts and went on to the University of Pennsylvania. While he was there, he worked as a copy editor for the Penn Review and the university's food magazine, Penn Appetit. Blaze was passionate about improving the university's safety, and he worked to reform campus policy. According to the Rabbi Arnold Rakeless, this quote, "He was one of these kids that absorbed every experience and did something with it. He was not somebody who just went through life. He took experiences as a gift and saw them as part of the whole." So Blaze's family, they set up a website for him and the organization they have set up in his honor, and it's blazebernstein.org if you want to check it out. There is a 48 Hours episode about him that I watched like half of it today while I was at work. It's from 2018, so it's a little outdated now because a lot more has happened since then. But there is a lot of clips of him, so you kind of get a sense for who he is as a person. I'll try to put some in maybe, but he did seem very outgoing, like to talk, fun personality. Yeah,
like they seem like a quite highly educated and a highly well-traveled family. Yeah, he seemed, from everything I've read, very charismatic, very outgoing, social. Like, it was a great loss for a lot of people when he was murdered.
So on the night of January 2nd, 2018, Blaze went to Lake Forest Borrego Park. He was picked up by 20-year-old Samuel Woodward. The two were acquaintances. They went to high school together. Samuel was older, so it seems like they like knew each other, but they weren't friends in school or anything like that. Apparently, Samuel was kind of like the weird kid in school that everyone kind of knew who he was, but they were all like, he's weird. Or like scary, whatever.
Yeah.
So Samuel would later tell police that Blaze texted him earlier that night asking for a ride to the park because he was meeting someone there. Samuel agreed and drove Blaze there around 10:30 p.m. Blaze got out of the car and went into the park alone while Samuel waited in the car. When Blaze didn't return, Samuel began texting him without any response. Samuel said he left, but returned hours later to look for him. Blaze only took his phone with him, no keys, wallet, credit cards, or his glasses. He didn't have any of that with him. The phone that he was using actually belonged to a family member who was letting him borrow it. It seemed like he didn't have a phone temporarily.
Yeah, I wonder if his
Not
phone
really sure
broke
why.
or something and he just needed a kind of fix. But
Yeah.
I found that was an interesting kind of little note.
So soon after Blaze went into the park, the phone stopped receiving calls and the location tracker on the phone stopped working. Blaze's friend Della told CBS LA he didn't have anything with him. He didn't have his glasses or his medication. He didn't bring his wallet or a phone charger. I don't think he planned on this being a long trip and he just disappeared. Blaze's family realized that he was missing on January 3rd when he missed a dentist appointment.
For the fourth night in a row, the Bernstein family will go to sleep without their oldest son at home.
I feel like we've explored everything that we could with regard to what happened, and all that we really know is that he ran off into the wilderness, and we don't know why.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein went to Borrego Park late Tuesday night, not far from his Lake Forest home. He left that night without telling his parents and hasn't been seen since.
They didn't respond to phone calls and saw that he wasn't in the room. So it took a while for us to realize that he left the night before.
The University of Pennsylvania pre-med student was home for winter break. He went with a friend to the park late Tuesday. His friend says Blaze ran into the darkness and never came back to the car.
He thought he was playing a joke or something. He was like taken off, and we don't know why.
He left our house that night with no wallet, no money, no identification, no credit cards, no keys, no eyeglasses. This is someone that needs to wear eyeglasses.
The Orange County Sheriff's Department searched the park, but they haven't seen any signs of Blaze. And his parents say he's never showed any signs of unhappiness or given them a reason to believe the successful student was under duress.
I've never seen him this happy. I've never seen him more hopeful. He had a new apartment. He was really looking forward to being managing editor of Pen Appetit.
And I remember at the time when this was happening, like in the group, we followed his disappearance in real time because that's what it was at the start. It was a missing persons case. And I remember like his family did a lot of social media posts, a lot of interviews. And it's interesting to go back and read the articles at the time because they don't name Samuel at first. It's always just the friend, and the police always reiterate that the friend was not a suspect at the time. They were just a witness. So it was kind of interesting to go back and reflect on what we now know has happened and what the media was reporting at the time.
That's why I get so annoyed because a lot of times now the news, they just like write over the old articles. Like with Delphi, I find that a lot when I try to go back. They like keep updating the same article, so then you lose the original stuff.
And I found in this case, I like, which I agree, I feel like that always happens, but in this case, thankfully, a lot of the original stuff still exists. So it was interesting to see how it changed and progressed over time as the case kind of evolved.
Yeah. So on January 8th, Jean, his mother, spoke to the media and pleaded for his return. She said, if there's any way you can come home, whatever's happened, wherever you've been, whoever you've talked to, it doesn't matter. We love you so much. We would give up everything we have to have you back. Another quote from her.
Sorry. Yeah, I just saw what you
Oh,
mean.
no, I was just thought my brain wasn't working. Jean also said, the fact that he didn't tell us he was going out tells us that he wasn't planning to be gone for very long. While Blaze was missing, the sheriff's department said that Samuel was only considered to be a witness and not a suspect. Drones were used in the search for Blaze. His mother said, it's going to take a lot of time to go through all the data they collected. We're only just beginning. The world is a big place and we are hunting aggressively for answers. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he was abducted. I can't figure out why anybody would want to hurt my son. So on January 10th, 2018, Blaze's body was found during a search of the park in an area that had been searched previously, but the recent rain helped uncover his body because he was in kind of like a shallow grave. His death was declared a homicide and an autopsy was performed, and Blaze was stabbed 28 times in the face and neck, which is crazy.
Yeah, such a rage-fueled attack, it seems.
So Lieutenant Brad Valentine, who's the chief of police services for the city of Lake Forest, said at a press conference, based on what we know, I believe Blaze was probably killed that night. Carrie Braun, who's a spokesperson for the sheriff's department, said there's kind of been some rumors about them meeting a third person. I don't have specific information on that at this point. The best thing to say is our investigators are actively following up on every lead that they can, and that will lead to an arrest of a suspect in this case. Blaze's father also spoke after his son was found. He said, "Needless to say, our family's devastated by the news. We, like so many of you around the world, love Blaze and wanted nothing more than his safe return."
It's unbelievable what you people have done for us and our son and his memory.
The parents of 19-year-old Blaze Bernstein spoke through tears after learning their son's body was found in Lake Forest's Borrego Park. The University of Pennsylvania student went missing a week ago. The Sheriff's Department now calling this a homicide investigation.
Needless to say, our family is devastated by the news, and we, like so many of you around the world, love Blaze. And we wanted nothing more than to seek his safe return.
Deputies launched an extensive search but came up empty until yesterday.
I can't comment on the condition of the body, but I can say that the rain did help us locate him.
The Sheriff's Department shared few details about the investigation, but did say a search warrant was served at a home in Newport Beach related to this case.
Once again, I can't make any comments as far as persons of interest or anything like that. There are no suspects in custody at this time.
January 12, 2018, Samuel Woodward, that was the acquaintance that Blaze went to the park with, I guess, that night. He was arrested on the 12th. And the Orange County undersheriff said, "Based on inconsistencies in the story of Woodward, we focus on him as a suspect." So Samuel was later arrested when crime scene technicians confirmed that blood found on a sleeping bag in Samuel's possession actually belonged to Blaze. It was discovered that Samuel and Blaze matched on Tinder and started communicating via Snapchat. Samuel told police that he agreed to pick up Blaze on January 2nd. He said they went to the Hobby Lobby parking lot to hang out and catch up. He took snacks, drinks, and marijuana with him. Samuel told police that Blaze tried to kiss him on the lips, but he rejected Blaze's advances. During the interview, police noted that Samuel clenched his jaw and said he wanted to tell Blaze to get off him. Samuel kept up the ruse that Blaze had walked into the park alone. He said that he waited for an hour and tried to contact him on Snapchat before leaving around 1 a.m. If they went at 10:30 and he left around 1, then...
But I think they went to the Hobby Lobby first and then, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, it seems like his story is inconsistent, like
Yes.
police are saying. So apparently at 1 a.m., Samuel drove to his girlfriend's house, but returned to the park at 3:40 a.m. and was still unable to find Blaze. I wonder if he really had a girlfriend. Before we get into the rest of the episode, this message is sponsored by Greenlight. Summertime is supposed to be an opportunity to slow down, but sometimes you can't help but notice that actually time is moving fast. Your kids are starting a new grade soon, maybe even a new school, and they're older, a little taller, and maybe even a little wiser. To help continue learning and build independence over the summer and stay connected as they start spending more time out of the house, I recommend Greenlight. One of my family members, they've been using Greenlight. It's really cool. It's a debit card and money app for families where parents can keep an eye on kids' spending and money habits, and kids learn to save and invest and spend wisely. My aunt said that it's so great for my cousin to just be able to text her when she needs like $10 for something, or if something unexpected happens, she could just send her the money without really having to worry about it.
So one great aspect of Greenlight is the Greenlight Infinity Plan. It includes all the financial literacy education that makes Greenlight a valuable resource for millions of parents and kids, plus built-in safety to give you peace of mind. With Greenlight Infinity, teens can check in without needing to actually check in, thanks to family location sharing, and that's so great for teenagers. They can also call for help when they need it with SOS alerts that connect them to family members, 911, or both. And there's even a feature that detects car crashes and will connect your young drivers to 911 dispatch and alert emergency contacts if needed. Sign up for Greenlight today and get your first month free when you go to greenlight.com/TCS. That's greenlight.com/TCS to try Greenlight for free. greenlight.com/TCS.
Samuel told detectives that Blaze complained about his grades in school and that he seemed depressed but never said anything about wanting to hurt himself. Detectives who spoke to Samuel 2 days after Blaze disappeared noticed that his hands appeared to have small scratches on them and that he appeared to have dirt under his fingernails. But when asked about it, Samuel told the detectives that the abrasions and dirt were from a fight club where he fell into a dirty puddle. what's a fight club?
It's just such a weird story. Like, and the thing is too, he had days to get his story together, but that's what he came up with. So
Yeah. Police thought Samuel seemed nervous during the questioning and noted that he was breathing heavy, talking fast, and visibly shaking. Samuel allowed police to look inside his rental car, where they noticed camping equipment, a large empty bin on the back seat, and a belt on the passenger side floorboard. So this is where we think they found that sleeping bag that had the blood on it.
We have exclusive video of murder suspect Sam Woodward pulling into his Newport Beach driveway Thursday, riding as a passenger in his mother's car. She attempted to conceal her son's face with a sunshade as our camera got close.
Can you tell us what happened to Blaze?
The 20-year-old former Orange County School of the Arts and Corona Del Mar High School student had been under surveillance since his friend Blaze Bernstein disappeared from a park in Foothill Ranch January 2nd.
Can you tell us what happened to Blaze?
No comment.
Do you know anything about what happened to Blaze? Were you there when he disappeared?
No comment.
Woodward was arrested on suspicion of murder at 1:15 today by undercover officers as he left his house. He'd been under surveillance for days. Neighbors say he dyed his hair dark and shaved it shortly after Bernstein vanished. The home where Sam Woodward lives with his parents was raided Wednesday, the same day that Orange County Sheriff's deputies announced that Blaze Bernstein's body had been found in the park where Woodward says he last saw him. Under Sheriff Don Barnes told reporters that DNA results today were crucial to the case.
But we were able to today, through our crime lab, confirm evidence collected through DNA that tied the Mr. Woodward to Mr. Bernstein.
They also noticed that on the way out of the sheriff's headquarters, investigators noticed that every door Samuel had to touch on the way out of the building, he pulled his jacket over his hand to prevent his hand and fingers from touching any part of the door that he touched, like trying to protect his fingerprints, basically.
not sus at all.
Yeah, totally. You know what? Honestly, though, not to go off on like a random tangent, my mom always tells me to open doors and stuff with my sleeve to avoid germs, which I don't because I'm too lazy, but
it's like money. Money's probably the grossest thing you can touch. Imagine how many disgusting people have touched the money.
Yeah, I know. So according to the affidavit, Samuel was known in high school for being a political conservative, and he defended controversial symbols like the Confederate flag. A source told the media that Samuel was as anti-Semitic as you can get. Samuel was a member of a neo-Nazi group called Atomwaffen Division, and this is some info about this group from Slate.com. A glance at the Atomwaffen website, an unsettling but juvenile site that plays on the dramatic imagery of the Third Reich in apocalyptic video games, shows that even beyond its hateful ideology, the group exists to prime young men for violence. It appears to target these angry young men with promises of hunting, adventuring, and urban exploring, as well as militant training in support of its goals of fascism and racial violence. Its website complains that the, quote, failure of democracy and capitalism has given way to the Jewish oligarchies and the globalist bankers, and promises real-life action, quote, no keyboard warriorism. I hate everything about this.
It just sounds exactly what I would have expected. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Incel neckbeard behavior. This is still about the site before I interrupted. It celebrates Hitler and Charles Manson as its heroes. Like, so original.
Yeah.
According to ProPublica, its ultimate goal is to overthrow the U.S. government through the use of terrorism and guerrilla warfare. At one point, Samuel went to Texas to attend a 3-day training camp, also known as a hate camp. While there, he learned skills related to hand-to-hand combat, firearms, and survival. I wonder if that, in his mind, is what the like Fight Club was. I can't believe, like, who's allowing people to do these things? I guess you can do whatever you want on like your own property, but what the hell? It was said in 2018 that Blaze's murder was the 5th allegedly connected to the neo-Nazi group.
So I did try to look up these alleged deaths. One, I believe, was where like a son murdered his parents. I feel like a lot of the times there's just these basic links to other deaths. Like I absolutely couldn't find anything totally confirmed that there had been 5 murders, but there was a bunch of things that this one may have been connected and this may have been connected.
But it wasn't like a clear like these deaths are claimed by us and blah, blah, blah.
No.
In terms of Samuel's background, he was born in Newport Beach, California. He attended the same school as Blaze for a short period of time, but his father kicked him out due to multiple reports that Samuel was becoming a misandrist to gay men. He finished his schooling at Corona Del Mar High School and went on to attend California State University Channel Islands for 2 semesters before dropping out. In 2018, Samuel complained to a friend that he could not establish any meaningful relationships. He said he would even leave the house and drive to a parking lot and sit there alone just to give his parents the impression he was out with friends. Dylan, one of Samuel's seemingly only contacts, encouraged him to return to college and to keep trying to make friends. So seems like he was very susceptible to these types of hate groups, just wanting to be part of something.
And also, Samuel spoke to Dylan in 2018. So this happened January 2nd, 18. So there's kind of some speculation that he met up with Blaze based, not obviously it's not Dylan's fault, but he,
like trying to make friends or get out there.
Get his meaningful relationships.
In groups like this one, like these are exactly the types of people that they look for to try to manipulate and recruit. Just him to a T, people who are lonely and desperate.
Yeah, people who aren't going to have anyone else to tell them not to do it, and people
just
looking
desperate
for
a sense of community.
Yeah. So we believe that Samuel was arrested on the day of Blaze's funeral, and Blaze's parents made this statement. They said, "We are saddened to hear on the day we laid our son to rest that gruesome details of the cause of death were published," which I believe is in regards to the 28 stab wounds. "Our son was a beautiful, gentle soul who we loved more than anything. We were proud of everything he did and who he was. He had nothing to hide. We are in solidarity with our son and the LGBTQ community. There is still so much discovery to be done, and if it is determined that this was a hate crime, we will cry not only for our son, but for LGBTQ people everywhere that live in fear or who have been victims of hate crime." So when Samuel was arrested, he was charged with murder and personal use of a deadly weapon. Later in 2018, 2 charges of committing a hate crime due to Blaze's sexual orientation were added. So at the time, there was discussion about if it was a religious hate crime, but I believe the hate crime charges at that time were just because of Blaze being gay, essentially. The legal process moved very slowly, as we mentioned in this case. Samuel faced a life sentence without parole. He initially faced a max sentence of 26 years in prison for the murder and weapons charges, but this was changed to life in prison once the hate crime charges were added. His bail was initially set at $5 million, but in November 2018, the judge denied Samuel bail altogether and ordered him to remain in custody pending the trial. The trial was first scheduled to start in 2021. That was pushed back to July 2022. On July 15th that year, the judge temporarily suspended the criminal proceedings after Samuel's attorney said she had concerns about his competence, and his attorney stated that he has Asperger's syndrome, autism, and OCD. In October 2022, Samuel was deemed competent, though, and a pre-trial hearing was scheduled for January 2023. Jury selection for the trial, though, finally started on February 20th this year, 2024. Samuel had an outburst in the courtroom, and at this time he threw a cup of water at the judge, and the trial finally began in April this year. So we're just a few months, basically, ago. That was when the trial started.
Forever.
Samuel's attorney, Ken Morrison, so he had a female attorney previously, but the main attorney in the trial was Ken Morrison, said in his opening statement that Samuel had killed Blaze, but the murder was not premeditated or motivated by hate. The attorney argued that Blaze had done something to provoke Samuel, which caused Samuel to snap. Ken also spoke about how Samuel had been diagnosed with autism. He revealed the diagnosis. He said that revealing the diagnosis was not an effort to excuse the crime, but he was speaking about it to help jurors understand his state of mind and the challenges he faced. Ken said Samuel Lincoln Woodward should be held accountable for what he did. He should not be held accountable for what he did not do, and this case was overcharged. So a little bit like the Wade Wilson case that we discussed last time. Both attorneys didn't deny that the murders were carried out by their clients, but that basically they shouldn't be facing the charges that they are. We learnt during the trial that Blaze had been texting friends about his possible meetup with Samuel. According to Forward.com, Blaze, quote, gleefully texted friends about the prospect of seducing the, quote, ultra-conservative Samuel. He told Samuel that he would keep their conversations private. Lead prosecutor Jennifer Walker said in her opening statements that after Blaze had invited Samuel to meet up, Samuel took an Adam Woffer mask, a folding knife, and a shovel with him. So that indicates premeditation, according to the prosecutor. Jennifer also said that Samuel's, quote, prey was gay people. She introduced testimony of Jean and asked about the family's religion and race, and Jean said, "We are a Jewish family." During the trial, we learned that Samuel and Blaze had actually started talking 6 months before the murder. They first matched on Tinder in June 2017. Blaze super liked Samuel, and Samuel liked him in return. Blaze sent him a message saying, "Wait, Sam Woodward, is that you?" Blaze was apparently shocked to see Samuel in a gay dating context online. He screenshotted Samuel's profile and sent it to two friends who had also gone to their high school. He told one of the friends that having sex with Sam would be, quote, legendary. He gave his friends regular updates as they flirted. Samuel had been rumoured in Blaze's group of high school friends to be closeted, and Blaze said that the Tinder exchange was proof of that. He wrote to his friends, "We all knew it." Samuel told Blaze on Tinder that he'd been looking for black women to hook up with and also guys to go deer hunting with, which this is a strange place to find deer hunting buddies. But he said he only matched with Blaze because he wanted to catch up. Despite this, Blaze told Samuel he was cute, and Samuel replied, "You're not too shabby looking yourself."
This all makes me so uncomfortable.
I know, it's so... Like, I can't even imagine the family, like, just having all their dirty laundry kind of aired. Like, I know it is all part of the story and why it all happened, but yeah, it's very uncomfortable. At one point, Blaze told Samuel that he was at home and was working on a birthday gift for a friend. Samuel offered to drive over and help, and Blaze refused because he said it was too complicated with his family at home. Samuel asked Blaze about his sexuality and then revealed that he had been, quote, kind of dishonest with Blaze, who said he had been curious about how Blaze would reply if he said he was into him. Blaze was annoyed by this but just let it go, dropped the whole situation, and the two of them stopped talking at this time. 6 months later, on January 2nd, 2018, which was the day that this all happened, the two matched on Tinder again. Samuel apologised at this time to Blaze about their previous interactions. He said he'd been, quote, going through a weird time. He also alluded to having suffered drug addiction, but said that he'd recovered. Blaze said that he was glad Samuel was better, but that he also didn't really care. Samuel asked, "Why did you like me if you didn't care? I'm confused." And Blaze told Samuel that he thought he was attractive and that he hadn't recognised him at first, but he also did not think that Samuel was straight. Samuel asked Blaze if anyone was reading over his shoulder, and then he said, "I might make an exception for you." Blaze replied, "We've already done this, Sam." And Samuel then asked Blaze if he had Snapchat, and the two moved over to that platform to keep chatting. So if you're not familiar with Snapchat, basically the messages disappear unless the user chooses to save them. So I guess it's a bit more of a confidential way to chat with someone, or less risk of things being saved and shared.
I'm surprised that they didn't subpoena the conversation, because you can get it. I've seen other cases where they get Snapchat conversations, unless it was just different at that time.
So the only saved message apparently between Samuel and Blaze was when Blaze sent Samuel the family's home address, and that was at 10:37 p.m. on January the 2nd. So Samuel got into his car immediately and drove to Blaze's home. 59 minutes later at 11:36 p.m., Blaze sent this message to his friend Lily: "I did something really horrible for the story." And then he sent another message a few seconds later, but also no one can ever know. So when Jean testified at the trial, she spoke about how she discovered Blaze was, quote, not heterosexual by reading his text when he was 13. Jean also said that she and Gideon told Blaze at the time that his sexual orientation was not important to them and that they knew. Jean did say that it took her a while to come to terms with it. She said, "I always pictured him walking down the aisle with a lady on his arm. When I realised it was never going to happen that way, it was shocking to me." Jean told the court about the events of January 2nd, 2018. She said that she and Blaze went to Costco and they prepared a feast, and that Blaze's paternal grandparents came over for dinner. Blaze never told his mother that he was going out that night, and when he did not come out from his bedroom the following day, Jean assumed that he was sleeping in. She only became concerned after he missed his dental appointment that afternoon. Jean left a message with Barbara, their housekeeper, and asked if she had seen Blaze. And Barbara said that Blaze was not in his room when she went to clean it, and then he hadn't been home all morning. So that's kind of when they started to realise that something was really wrong. So Samuel testified during the trial for 5 days. He would often take up to 30 seconds to respond to a yes or no question. Ken, the attorney, spoke about how Samuel had struggled throughout his life and that he wasn't diagnosed with autism until he was 18. This meant that it was generally too late for prescribed interventions that may have helped him, because early intervention is very important in those type of situations. Ken said that Samuel's diagnosis made it difficult for him to communicate and led to him being socially awkward and lonely. He also said that the late diagnosis made him vulnerable and explained why he was enticed by the Adam Waffen division, which is what we spoke about earlier, which I do agree with that.
It's sad how he was radicalized by this group, basically, and it seems like he had no family to support him because it does seem like he has some disabilities, but basically he had no one to help him. It said his dad tried to throw him out. I don't ever see a mom mentioned. So, I mean, it is sad just to see what can happen to someone when they don't have a support group and then you get radicalized by these shitty hate groups online. Like, things could have turned out very differently for him if he had people who cared about him.
I agree. So Ken said that Samuel was attracted to the group due to a sense of belonging and the brotherhood of strong men. Samuel told a psychiatric expert named Martha Rogers that he didn't pay any attention to the hate that was spewed by the group, but he enjoyed the positive reinforcement from them. Jennifer Walker, the DA, alleged that Samuel was getting to run and hide with the group before Blaze's body was found. She said he already had his bags. He was already talking to Adam Woff and people about going somewhere else, and he thought he was going to get away with it. It's only by the grace of God that rain happened and they found his body. So during the trial, we did learn more about Samuel's background and childhood and all the things that had happened to him in his life. His father was said to be a homophobic. Samuel had kept a journal where he wrote about how he'd humiliated gay males by leading them on, calling them sodomites and other slurs. One journal entry was presented in court and it was titled Diary of Hate. In that, Samuel spoke about threats he made to gay people online. He also sent emails to himself under the heading Sam's Diary. He said, I tell sodomites that I'm bi-curious, which makes them want to convert me. Get them hooked by acting coy, maybe send them a pic or two, beat around the bush, and pretend to tell them that I like them, and then kabam. I either unfriend them or tell them they have been pranked. Ha ha. So that was from May 2017. In another email he sent from July 2017, he wrote about downloading the gay dating app Grindr. He said, LMAO, they think they are going to get hate crimes and it scared the shit out of them. Priceless. So, I don't know. He just didn't seem to have much else going on if this is how he spent his time. But, it's just a very strange situation. Ken also spoke about how Samuel thought Blaze was, quote, a chill guy. He said that Samuel admired how comfortable Blaze was with being gay because Samuel had always struggled with accepting himself. Ken said Blaze Bernstein was in a lot of ways intimidating because he had qualities that Samuel thought he lacked. Sam was questioning all these things, looking for strong men, something he aspired to be. So Samuel testified in court about the night he met Blaze. He said he took 2 hits of marijuana and it felt like he was falling asleep. He then said he felt a strange sensation on his legs and immediately thought he had urinated on himself as he had apparently done this in the past. So I guess he recognized the sensation maybe and thought that's what happened. He came to, though, and realised that his pants were undone and Blaze had his hand on his groin. He alleged that Blaze was photographing or videoing the scene. Samuel said that he panicked and said that he was in, quote, mortal terror that his homophobic family would find out. He said the look on his father's face alone would be so upsetting. He struggled with Blaze to get the phone away from him, and Samuel alleged that Blaze was saying that he would out Samuel. Samuel was unable to get the phone off Blaze, and this is apparently when he snapped and he repeatedly stabbed Blaze and then smashed the phone. Samuel said he dug a shallow grave with his hands and he left Blaze's body in the park, which I have questions because the DA was saying that he took the shovel and it seems like Blaze's body was quite well hidden enough that it wasn't found for almost a week. So I feel like it seems like it was maybe a little bit more than a shallow grave, but that's
and also who knows how much this story is even true.
Yeah. So after Blaze vanished, his parents went through his social media because that's when we mentioned that Jean made the statement about we don't care who you've been talking to. I guess they kind of saw some of the things that he'd been doing online. They called Samuel and he lied to them about the events of January 2nd. The DA, Jennifer Walker, said that even after the murder, Samuel began searching for information online about DNA and he even got a haircut to change his appearance. She said the abundance of evidence here is overwhelming. So on July 3rd, 2024, after a trial that ran for almost 3 months, Samuel was found guilty of first-degree murder as well as the hate crime charges. People in the courtroom cheered as the verdict was read, particularly when the hate crime allegation was found to be true. Judge Maninger said, I understand that it's emotional, but I just can't have that. Samuel's sentencing is scheduled for later this year for October 25th. He faces life without the possibility of parole. The DA, Jennifer Walker, said, I'm just so happy for the Bernsteins because it's been a very painful process. After the verdict, Jean, his mother, thanked everyone who has supported the family. She also asked the media to give the family time to process this outcome and to live our lives knowing that this murderer will no longer be able to hurt any other people. She said this is a great relief that justice was served and this despicable human who murdered our son will no longer be a threat to the public. This is a statement from blazebernstein.org that I wanted to share just as we finish off Blaze's story. It says, while his family will age and grow old, Blaze will stay forever young. Blaze wrote in his college entrance essay, as I change, my words change, but even after days or months or years, I can still find a version of myself, a time traveler from the past, present, or future, sitting there in the text and waiting to speak to me. So his loved ones wait for Blaze to speak to them, a time traveler from the past, as they read what is left of him and his beautiful voice. That is it in terms of the Blaze Bernstein murder story and the trial. The sentencing will happen in the next few months, so we'll have to update you once that does happen. I do think this sounds like it was the right outcome. Samuel was a very troubled, lonely person who was, like, I feel like this could have been a lot worse if only one murder. I know it sounds bad because it's horrible for Blaze's family, but I feel like he had the potential to do a lot worse as well.
Yeah, like I said before, just sad kind of what happened to him. Not that it's any excuse, but it just shows really what can happen. And everyone needs to look out for each other and just make sure those sad, lonely kids aren't being radicalized into this fucking crazy stuff.
It's kind of a case of nature versus nurture here because he just had nothing. He had no support. And again, I'm not making excuses for his behavior. The right outcome happened in this case, but it just shows you when people don't have support of their parents, what can happen sometimes.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear more about his family. I was just Googling while you were talking because I'm just like, shouldn't this like hate group be held accountable for like doing shit like this? And there are articles and stuff about it. I did find one from, it was 2022 that was released by like the justice.gov website. It says a Washington man was sentenced to 84 months or 7 years in prison for his role in a plot to threaten and intimidate journalists and advocates who worked to expose anti-Semitism. Caleb Cole, 25, a leader of the neo-Nazi group Atomwaffen Division, was convicted by a federal jury and says like all the different counts of cyber stalking and the threats and everything. Caleb Cole helped lead a violent nationwide neo-Nazi group. He repeatedly promoted violence, stockpiled weapons, and organized hate camps. Today, the community and those Mr. Cole and his co-conspirators targeted stand up to say hate has no place here. He tried to intimidate journalists and advocates with hate-filled and threatening posters, tried to amplify their fear. Instead, they faced him in court, and their courage has resulted in the federal prison sentence imposed today. So it's just crazy, like, that people feel like they can do stuff like this. I hate how toxic like the world can be. It's horrible.
Even we had a message from someone on Instagram, which is not about this case, but they're like, she goes, I don't do social media. It's so nasty, which I agree.
It is.
Like, it gives you access to the worst parts of humanity, the internet and social media does. So yeah, it's a lot sometimes.
I feel that so much lately. I think I mentioned in our episode that'll come out tomorrow, just with it being an election year, it's like everyone's angry and cranky. And there's just so many shitty people online that are so mean and just like comment looking for fights on everything. It's just so exhausting. I was like, my life really would be better in some senses just like not being on social media. I really try to curate my algorithm to only be nice, happy, positive things, but just everyone is so toxic lately. It sucks.
I do recommend to checking out blazebernstein.org. His family have a movement called Blaze It Forward, like hashtag Blaze It Forward, and it's about, it says the movement to make the world a better place with one intentional kind act of a time. So if you want to learn more, it's a really great website. There's a ton of information about Blaze on there if you want to check out and learn more about his life, because his family are honouring his memory with this Blaze It Forward movement.
So that is it for this episode. We'll have a blog on truecrimesocietyblog.com like we always do, and make sure you're following us at True Crime Society on Instagram. I mean, there's not gonna be any updates well, I guess there is, because we're still waiting for the sentencing, so we'll post any updates there, plus with any new cases and all that going on. If you want to follow our personal accounts, mine is StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia. You can see what we're up to. And also check us out on Patreon. We do weekly bonus episodes. We do all these episodes ad-free. We do an earlier release for the episodes. And all the usual stuff. Just leave us a nice comment, nice reviews, share to your Instagram stories, and all that. It's a big help to us when you guys do stuff like that.
In the next few weeks too, we are having a week off. You're going away, and just another week to kind of recoup and get ready for the rest of the year. So if you do want an episode, make sure you join us on Patreon, because there will still be one there that week.
Yeah, so it'll just be the very last week of July. There won't be a regular episode, but there should be a Patreon episode. Plus, you get the backlog of like all of the episodes we've done on Patreon too when you join.
We've nearly been going for a year on Patreon, so there's quite a lot.
Yeah, crazy, time flies. All right, thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there. Peace out.
See ya.